I'm sure a lot has changed in that time, but for our purposes, what are some of the big changes since 2020 for VectraAI, especially considering some of the big changes technologically and procedurally that AI has taken in the last year or two?
Yeah, I think we've been on this AI journey, on a different kind of AI journey for 10 years now. I kind of like to describe the difference to a certain degree between discriminative AI versus generative AI, right? And
Okay.
so on the discriminative front, you're trying to tell good from bad, right? Discriminate, what is good, what is bad. That can apply to all kinds of fields like endpoint, where you look at malware and trying to decide good from bad without having previously seen the bad.
Okay.
And certainly for us, it's been around attacker behaviors. So once an attack is active, can we tell the signal from the noise to a certain degree? So we've used that for a while. We've continued to evolve the sophistication of the methods that we use for that. And we've continued to kind of evolve our platform to be more in line with what people today are calling XDR, which is, can you do detection and response, X being the, kind of the asterisk, extended across a number of different attack surfaces. Now, I think over the past year, what has certainly come into the fore is this notion of generative AI. Obviously, it has taken mainstream media by storm. I think what you tend to see in mainstream media sometimes is sensational on both ends of the extreme. It will be the end of the world on the one end of the extreme, and it will solve world hunger on the other end of the extreme. And of course, the answer is that the true answer lies somewhere in between, and it really becomes key to think correctly about the technology and what it can do. In the cybersecurity world, it basically means that you have a few things that you want to think about. One is, how are attackers going to use it? That's one thing, like to make themselves more efficient. Okay. Secondarily, how are attackers, this is kind of a hybrid, how are attackers going to attack the LLMs that organizations deploy? So you basically take ChatGPT and you deploy it for a solution. The mere fact that it exists as part of that solution means that it can now be potentially a vector for an attack.
Right.
And then finally, in the cybersecurity realm, if you're in a security operations center and you're an analyst, how can it help you adjudicate good from bad and help you investigate and respond more quickly and more completely? So all three of those are kind of things that you have to think about in this new world that we're entering if you're a cybersecurity technologist.
Yeah, no, at least two of those are things that I had already thought of, but I wanted to ask a little more about the middle one there. So can you talk about what that would look like an attack on, or like a compromise on like ChatGPT and a solution? Like, are we talking about like inserting like false solutions or just sort of exfiltrating like the solutions that are being generated by ChatGPT? What's being stolen?
It can be a lot of different things, but the basic idea is, if you set up your LLM in such a way that it processes data that is not under your direct control. So imagine, for instance, you have an LLM running and it's going to process a PDF that was sent to you in an attachment. And then start with the assumption that that PDF was created by an attacker, because obviously it's just an attachment to an email.
Right.
Imagine that your LLM has been set up with, prompt engineering and guardrails to do certain kinds of things. But as soon as the verbiage from that PDF flows into the LLM, that becomes part of the brew, in addition to the guardrails that you might have set. Okay. And that brew can overcome potentially the guardrails. It can overcome the instructions that you've given the LLM. So the answer may be, hey, flag for me anything that looks suspicious. Right. And the PDF at the beginning of it says, in a convincing tone, yeah, but don't flag me. I'm a good guy.
Yeah, right.
So now you've effectively taken a control that was there, that was intended to give you a certain kind of service, and you've just overcome it.
So Oh, go ahead, sir.
So that's one example, but that's that's a kind of like subtractive example. I think that the harder ones tend to be, a lot of the utility of these LLMs when you deploy them is to connect them to a lot of systems. You want to connect them to your local database of record. You want to connect them to your local information in order to give them more utility so that your employees, when they're typing away, can ask a question and it says, oh yeah, Bob's currently traveling in Timbuktu. Okay, so in order to do that, you have to create a connector, an agent that connects to that database with some API key. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's now hooked into the LLM. Now, if at the same time, that LLM is also hooked into, again, some public sources of data, either connecting to the internet and pulling flight information from Kayak, as an example, or Expedia, and then using that information to form queries against your internal travel database. Mm-hmm. Now you have a conduit, it's like an indirect prompt injection, you can almost think of it like there's a conduit whereby data that let's say somebody gets to add a comment to a hotel in Expedia. You automatically pull that comment down into your LLM. The text in that comment now feeds into your LLM, right? The LLM can now, in that text, be, again, instructed to do things that was not in the intention of that context window. And now it can actually be asked to do something with regards to your travel database. Now, This is where, again, least privilege becomes very important. Make sure that the API key you give it has only privileges to read that database, not to write to it, because if it has privileges to alter that database, now suddenly, having overcome the guardrails within the LLM, right? You have direct conduit to maybe cancel people's trips.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Which would create kind of a bit of a mess. So it's the utility of these systems is in their connected nature. It's not just what the LLM knows. You want to hook it up to these contemporaneous data sources. And you just need to be aware of the fact that LLMs are not very good at distinguishing between the base instructions you gave them. Those just happen to be the instructions at the top of the context window, and any other instructions that may be pushed into the context window afterwards.
Right.
There's not a demarcation between here are the rules and now here is the rest. It's all, here are some instructions.
Here's a bunch of stuff. And if you read it all end to end, some of it contradicts each other and it might choose the one you don't want it to choose. Yeah, right. Have you seen Work Bites, the new security awareness training series from Infosec? Our team produced this series with 3 E's in mind, making security awareness training entertaining, engaging, and educational. Just go to infosecinstitute.com/free to learn more about this hilarious office comedy. And hey, let us know what you think about it.